So I mean, have we moved into a new era of COVID, or like, what is it? Like, I can't figure out. Something is different, right? Because a couple of years back, if there was a COVID spike like the one we're having now, it would have been a really big deal, right? Now it seems to be somewhat less of a big deal. I mean, I think for just about everybody, and I have to assume there's some people who are immunocompromised who for whom that is not true. Where are y'all at with all of that? Because I mean, so the reason I ask is so I have
Shannon. Where are you on that?
Yeah, Shannon. Okay, yeah, let's set the scene. Shannon, how are you feeling?
I have COVID again, bitches. I have fucking COVID again.
How does that happen?
What I have learned is I am potentially the most unique or #blessed person on the planet because when discussing with my doctor why in the fuck I was negative for 5 days and was living my life, having a fine time, as good of a time as one can have in late stage capitalism, and then woke up and felt like ass and tested positive and then have to re-isolate. My doctor was like, wait, excuse me, what? So I don't know. Yeah, we're in a different fucking time of COVID. Somebody who didn't have it for 3+ years can get it twice in a month. So where am I at with it? I am very frustrated.
You're loving it. You're also getting the full authentic experience too, where there's like a bunch of smoke in the air. So
that's what it was
only are you like stuck in your house feeling sad, but like if you do go outside, you are breathing smoke. So that is a callback to a very fun time that I remember.
Yeah, and I am
years ago.
As our listeners know, I am also a smoker. So having COVID and smoking in the smoke is a real experience. I'm really glad. I felt like I was missing out before, so I'm glad to have this experience now.
Welcome.
So the reason I bring all of this up is that I have a trip coming up next month, and I really don't want COVID to fuck it up. This is kind of a once in a lifetime type trip. How bad of an idea is it to treat Shannon's case of COVID like we used to treat chicken pox and just go hang out in Shannon's house and just get it over with, so that by the time this thing rolls around, I'm full of antibodies and I'm good to go.
Listen, we live just down the street from one another. I will walk over to your house and sit in your living room. I mean, I haven't had any other fucking human contact, so
cough on everything. Yeah,
I'll cough on things. If anyone wants to
spit on things,
build up the antibodies, and you want to drop dishes off on my porch, I'll just lick them, and then you can come back. I'll do like a drive-by dish licking.
That's my thing, actually. That's my kink, drive-by dish licking.
That's a community service too.
Yeah, I'm all about public health and community service. I care about the people.
You are all about public health, and you do care about the people. Those are two of your best qualities.
That's what I've been told, and I'm really glad that those qualities are being affirmed here today.
This conversation makes me want to take a COVID test right now.
I kind of do too. I've been feeling funky the last couple days, and I'm it's.
Yeah. I tell you, it all starts with extreme fatigue, and then the next thing you know, you got positive tests, just positives.
I like how you have them on hand.
Wow, they're all over the place. I got all of them.
A treat for the YouTubers.
That's not even all of them. There's more laying here. It's my collection.
Yeah, I just feel like I mean, I can't imagine what it's like for immunocompromised folks.
Oh God, I know.
What would you do? What do you do? Do you just like not?
I think you get the shots when they come out, and
but now you got to wait for them, right? Or like, what's the? When are
The-
those?
The new vaccine has been commercialized, so
So we got to pay.
you have to pay for it, and
Lovely.
there is funding available for people who are uninsured to get it free of charge, but that's rolling out. It seems like it's rolling out a little bit slower than it is to private insurance, obviously, because capitalism rules. So yeah, I mean, it is a very bizarre like situation that we find ourselves in, because this surge is not unlike the other ones that we have had,
Right.
where this shit is spreading like fucking wildfire. People are getting quite ill. I mean, we don't see the same death rate as we did because science is real,
Right.
and we have the ability to treat people, and because vaccines are out there. But yeah, if you're immunocompromised, like, this is a terrifying time again, right? Like, and this is probably the world that we're going to live in, where like once a year we have like a massive surge, a new variant. We've got to get like a new booster that may or may not help with the variant that's actively invading people's bodies. I love that there's a COVID test happening while we're recording right now.
You know, I'm traveling soon, so I just got to be prepared.
That's smart. I appreciate that. That's another, thing I like about you is that you really uphold public health, and you're
I
a
don't
friend
know
of the
about that,
community.
but thank you.
Absolutely, yeah.
I try. I try.
Not you, Dave.
The on-screen COVID test is another treat for the YouTubers.
Yeah. Oh my God. What if I have COVID too?
You know what? I'll tell you.
We are
join
going to
the
find
club
out.
with
We're gonna learn
Shannon.
in real time on the show. This could be
That's
a
exciting,
Voices River City
actually.
first.
Should
Yeah.
we place bets?
Okay, I bet no.
Because I did go out this weekend. Like, maybe I should.
I take back what I said about public health and being a friend of public health.
Yeah.
I didn't have all the information when I said that.
I was at the Voices meetup on Thursday, but I tested positive on Sunday. So, woo.
Something we should have told the Voices people are at the thing.
You're all
Well,
finding out now.
Sign up for the
Well,
Patreon,
I'll find
folks.
I felt
Learn more
fine.
public health pointers. Well, with that, let's start the show before we
Yes.
put our feet in our mouths anymore.
That's what we do best.
Voices, the things they said. Voices, some from those dead. All the voices heard. Voices, things we say. Voices, they're in your head. All the voices heard.
Hello, everyone. You have Kempa.
And you have Skylar.
Also, you have Shannon.
And you have Nia.
Yes, we do.
Hell yeah. Welcome.
Guest
Indeed.
host for the week. Hopefully new host in our host corral. Nia Wynn. Nia, tell us a little about yourself. We've known you forever, so tell the listeners who you are.
Yeah, I'm an organizer, a national organizer, and support the LGBT, specifically the T community, in organizing. And what else? I'm an artist, and I'm a writer, and I'm a loud, crazy bitch who likes to party. Just kidding. No, I used to, long time ago. So yeah, not no more. My anxiety crept in and she took over. So
Yeah.
I just like to chill now.
I think that's the deal with most of the hosts of this show too. There was a time when we partied, but I think the Voices Hangout, which thank you to everyone who came out to it. I believe that ended pretty early.
Yeah, I was home by like 10.
Yeah.
It was
Which
a
is
less
ideal for me.
boozy affair than those hangouts have been in the past.
Mm-hmm. We're no spring chickens,
I am not a spring
Thank
chicken.
God.
Thank God for that.
I know.
Cool. Well, super excited to have you join us. Welcome, Nia. And, thanks to the folks again who came out for the Voices, the patron-only hangout. And
also, potentially, we're really sorry.
I'm not. I'm boosting immunity.
you were fully you did not have COVID. You were testing negative.
I even tested moments before because Sky and I rode in the same vehicle. And I was like, I just want to be sure. I tested moments before and it was negative. So if anyone got COVID that night, it's from somebody that is not me.
I hugged you and I feel great. I felt great ever since I hugged you.
Yeah, well, I have that effect on people. I am just a warm, radiant light in the world, and I just reek of positivity.
Now, folks,
Shannon, that's what I like about you. Your positivity and your warmth.
Yeah.
I was thinking that, that question that you asked earlier, Skylar, that we're probably either leaving the stage of guilt for COVID, the stages of grieving.
Mm-hmm.
We were in denial during COVID lockdown.
It feels like we oscillate among those two. Or maybe like sooner or later we're at acceptance where it's an endemic and not pandemic. But also just folks, if you want to just reek of positivity like Shannon, consider becoming a patron of this show.
You should.
Patreon.com/VoicesRiverCity. As little as $5 a month, you can help support us. You're probably wondering how to support us financially, as Skylar wrote in a recent post that made me laugh very hard. We really appreciate it. And we care a lot about this work, and it just kind of helps keep this thing moving. But I want to get into things today. And I have a question for all of you.
God.
And that question
what is this question?
Oh, man.
I hope you're ready.
What is he going to say?
Co-hosts, how did we get here?
Oh, God.
Okay, so Dave, I believe what you're referencing is a press conference that took place earlier this week, where the Sac County DA Thien Ho announced that he was actually bringing a lawsuit against the city because they are enabling, and I can't remember the words he used, but it's like, I don't know, it's enabling in some other language, but it's about homelessness. I want to start this off, if I may.
You may, whatever it is, you may.
Well, he's allowing the city to descend into decay, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Well, no, he's not. He's the only. Yeah, he's the only one standing in between.
Yes.
The city and being in a state of decay and desperation.
It appears he believes, that he might be the hero we need.
So to that point, as I was listening to him at the press conference, it felt familiar. There were some things that he was saying that made me think, where have I heard this before? So there is another DA who works in Gotham City, who was an upstanding district attorney until I think he fell halfway into acid and half of his body was horribly disfigured. And he then wears suits that are split vertically down the middle, and he does crimes under the moniker of Two-Face, and he fights Batman. And you may be wondering, what does our DA have to do with that DA?
But I'm always reminded of a saying. It's always darkest right before the dawn.
Things are worse than ever.
Yes, they are. The night is darkest just before the dawn.
He stole the
All the while,
line!
the rest of the community is stuck between compassion and chaos. So how did we get here?
You thought we could be decent men in an indecent time.
In the last 7 years, Our unhoused population in Sacramento has exploded to over 250%. We have more homeless people in Sacramento than in San Francisco. The community is at a breaking point.
Politicians grow fat, holy men are martyred, and junkies grow legion. Why?
A fundamental question that we all have is, do the laws apply to some of us or none of us?
Unbiased, unprejudiced, fair.
As
Incredible.
we look out, we think that the homeless and the unhoused crisis is bleak and dark.
You merely adopted the dark. I was born in it.
The sunrise is coming. That the sunrise is coming soon enough, and it will shine its beautiful rays of light upon our city of trees.
What does that mean? Rise.
Is this a
Thien Ho
prelude?
is Harvey Dent. Yeah.
Yes, this must be a prelude, because next thing you know, one of the unhoused folks are going to douse acid on his face. And
That's the
show
thing.
up.
There's some things I think that could really save Thien here. Number one, don't date Maggie Gyllenhaal.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, and you want to not fall into acid. You want to
Careful.
avoid that at all
Avoid
costs.
barrels of acid at all costs.
Yeah, if you
Tien.
just don't, if there's gonna be barrels of acid in the vicinity,
Retract your RSVP.
don't go there. Just
Mhm.
go somewhere else.
And you know what's unfortunate? Our
Wasn't it the
billionaire
Joker that
left.
did that to him?
Yes.
Sorry, what was that, Nia?
I was saying, and you know what's unfortunate? Our billionaire left. He moved to Texas.
So we don't have a Batman.
We don't have a Batman.
Man,
are we
I
gonna
mean, I
do?
tell you, if this turns into a Two-Face situation, I don't know what we're gonna do, because the only thing that's standing in between Two-Face and Gotham is Batman, and if we don't have that, I'm
It's
not sure how
Christian
we're gonna
Bale.
do
We're gonna have to call him up.
it.
Yep. We should definitely call him up.
Hey,
No,
Christian. Yes,
Yes.
this is Christian Bale.
What can I do for you?
Okay,
I
no,
have
but just
COVID.
so everybody knows, so yeah, not everybody is as familiar with these movies as I have, having seen them all 100 million times. So all of those quotes, except the
lot of
Bane one, I
times.
just threw that in because I thought it was funny. But all of those quotes are from either the Aaron Eckhart version of Two-Face. There's also a quote from the Tommy Lee Jones Two-Face, as featured in Batman Forever. But literally, not just a lot of the same sentiments are being used between
Incredible.
Harvey Dent and Thien Ho, but some of the exact same phrases.
And
Which-
the cadence is the same.
It was perfect.
Yeah.
He probably watched those movies before he did that press conference.
100%.
No doubt about that. He
Harvey
probably
Dent,
did.
first year district attorney in a city mired in problems.
Mhm.
And he thinks he's the person to fix all those problems. He argues in the movie that, back in Rome, like they had one person to defend the city from everyone. Mr. Ho thinks that's him.
Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
like,
He said that
I'm
it
gonna-
started 7 years ago.
This is like all he's been dreaming of. Like he watched all those Batman movies and was like, man, I got to do that someday. And then
I'm calling a press conference.
yeah, you know what? It's time
So
to quit.
good.
This is my time. This is my time. Everyone stand behind me.
Okay, well, we should probably get into like what he actually did, but we can,
Oh,
I'm sure,
right.
make a lot of Harvey Dent Two-Face references throughout. So it all started a few months ago, where basically District Attorney Thien Ho, it's his first year as the district attorney. He's a 23-year prosecutor. He's been a prosecutor in Sacramento County for almost 2 decades. Known to be pretty no nonsense. He was elected last year over friend of the show, Alana Matthews, to be the DA. And obviously he has taken a very sort of draconian approach. But interestingly, his draconian approach is seems to be attacking city officials, similar to Two-Face's frustrations with electeds. Now,
so smart.
Now, he is basically arguing that the city of Sacramento is not enforcing enough against homeless people. And he names a number of things, and we should probably parse this all out. But, he does mention a few things like needle use and
sidewalk blockages,
blocking the sidewalk, and
indecent exposure.
Okay, I didn't hear that one, but I know a lot of his followers are big on that and public defecation and things like that. And then also illegal storage. I don't know what that means. So if anyone wants to tell me,
isn't that the same thing as sidewalk blockages? Like illegal storage is just when you put your stuff on the sidewalk, right?
Yeah, it's just like when you don't have a house and you have stuff, and so you put it outside of your tent, like
it has to be
the illegal storage.
Okay,
right. And if there's no place for you to be, then it goes somewhere where it would probably be better off in an actual domicile in your closet, like everybody else.
Weird how that works,
but we don't have that going here.
Yeah.
So can someone tell me his frustration with these enforcement things not coming to court? He's basically mad that the city isn't citing and arresting unhoused people, basically for their necessity of life infractions that they're doing. There's other people claiming other things, but I think those things are crimes, right? So you can arrest people for crimes. It's just that our cops are bad and have always been bad at actually catching people who do crimes.
And also these things that people are that he wants to be arrested, like you can do that inside a home or sheltered, but if you do that outside, obviously it's a crime.
Right. So let's talk about some of those things. Like,
of course. I mean, I'd love for us to also talk about Sandy too.
Oh yeah, let's get to Sandy in a minute.
So bizarre.
But let's break down these laws, right? First, Skylar, it looks like you want to talk.
I do want to jump in here and just say, regardless of what the crimes or the alleged crimes are, there's two things. The first thing is that before you can start having a conversation about voluntary or involuntary, making people go to shelter or whatever, the shelter has to be there. You can't have a conversation either way about that, regardless of the morality of the situation. It just doesn't make sense to be like, well, if they have to go there, right? Because a fundamental rule of being a human being is that you exist in space and that you have to do it somewhere, right? If we don't have anything anywhere else for you to be, you got to be somewhere that is often on a sidewalk or close to one, right? So
I think that's the first part that we haven't really talked about yet too, which is the crux of what he's actually doing is trying to increase homeless sweeps. Right. It has little to do with all of these other things. He wants the city to start performing homeless sweeps again, which have been deemed illegal by a federal court.
Well, and that's the other side of it, right? I mean, so that's the second kind of thing that I wanted to get to is I don't even, again, let's set the obvious immorality of the situation aside, but even if he could execute on, even if Sac PD tomorrow was just okay, then we'll start citing and arresting people for illegally camping or whatever. If you think that through it wouldn't take long, a couple days or a week. So what happens? For one, how, are you going to give a citation to somebody who doesn't have an address or money, or in a lot of times, the cognitive capacity to understand what is happening and how to follow through on dealing with that? So that's the plan. That doesn't sound like a very good plan. We can throw people in jail. Right now, even if we wanted to move forward with that, we don't have enough jail space for that. There isn't even enough room, even regardless, again, of the morality of that idea. There isn't. So there isn't enough room. And even if there was, so then how long do you hold somebody? Like how long should you go to jail for setting up your tent on the sidewalk illegally? Like maybe 2 days, 3 days. So then you throw them back out of jail onto the street.
And now you don't have a tent.
Then what happens, right? So it doesn't, just from like a logical standpoint, it doesn't make sense. And his whole thing is based around like, oh, well, they need to get into services. But there aren't services. There's nothing like that. And he points to this, oh, well, the sheriff has done this great job of offering people things. Did you guys watch that video? Their like outreach team cruised around and talked to a bunch of unhoused folks and were like, hey, do you guys want to throw all your stuff away and get rid of your pets and leave your partner so that you can move into this porta potty that locks from the outside? And people were like, no. And they were like, well, we tried to help them.
Resistant.
Like they're service resistant people. Yeah, exactly. It's
resistant.
Like, yeah. So that's that's your idea of outreach. I don't know.
This entire lawsuit is hinged on this total fucking bullshit fallacy that Ho is telling himself so that he can sleep at night, which is that this is the most compassionate action for housed and unhoused people because it's going to lead to broad sweeping community safety, right? So he's like operating under this like, and we got to see this play out as his two speakers shared their story during the press conference, where it's like there's just things aren't safe, we've been attacked, blah blah. But also there was very I think intentionally planted language all throughout, which stated folks living outside deserve more, essentially, right? They deserve better. It's not compassionate to let someone die in the summer heat. It's not compassionate to let someone freeze to death in a cold winter night.
And then
it's like it's also not compassionate to allow these spaces where these spaces exist where it is so unsafe that a 14-year-old boy can't ride his bike to school every morning, or a group of little girls can't play soccer in the park because the park is infested with needles. And it's like the problem is that this whole thing is it's hinging on the wrong thing. Like
the language says exactly after he's saying we need to be compassionate towards the unhoused community, that language is most, if not all, unhoused people are criminals. And we must enforce
drug addicts.
Yeah, I mean, like
his
most of his press conference speech was like laid out manufacturing to his his folks and everybody who's watching to really paint unhoused people as not people.
Mm-hmm.
The way that he talks about
Okay, so at this point, my internet just completely dropped out of nowhere. This has never happened before. I am not 100% sure what happened. Here's the thing. I'm not going to publicly say that Two-Face was definitely involved, but it seemed the timing, you have to admit that the timing is a little suspect. Anyway, I'm going to investigate, but the rest of the show starts right now.
Yeah, so what I know about Thien Ho is that he tried to reach out to a lot of the Asian community when he was running, and he entered a lot of those spaces, and he utilized that refugee story constantly to give some, background on him. His
he's
family,
a Vietnam refugee, right?
Yeah, his family is from Vietnam. They, they always utilize the "we escaped communism" kind of story, right? Like leaving southern Vietnam, Saigon, or what you want to call it. But people always say, they always utilize that, but like Saigon or like South Vietnam is actually a was backed by the United States government. So
Right.
it was more of a fascist state than it was anything remotely communistic, right? So he used that. And then, of course, when Alana was running, all of these identity politics rhetoric starts to show up with him. And he gets elected and he completely switches. So to me, he's already two-faced. But
Dang.
I was at a town hall for public safety and policing, and he was there either as a guest speaker or as a keynote. I don't exactly remember, but it was chaotic as fuck, right? Because it had to be translated with everybody that was speaking in English into Cantonese and Vietnamese, right? And it was a room full of Asian elders there. Obviously, you know, with everything that was going on around this time regarding anti-Asian attacks, you know, hashtag anti-Asian, right? He was there, and you could see the frustration in his face when the translators were just not, you know, being able to corral the Asian elders, and they were just all talking over him. And finally, he just, you know, I guess like what he wanted to translate was that, you know, it's like, you got to call the police. You got to call the police. I'll try my best to, you know, litigate and sue as anybody as I can. He said, I don't care if you steal $5, $50, $500. I'm going to try my best to sue you, or like, you know,
throwing the book at the petty thieves.
Exactly.
Seems like a cool dude.
Oh,
Yeah.
seems very cool, right? And then so like that obviously was not being translated properly. And he just got up and said, you know what? And he just commanded the room, and he basically said, repeat after me, call 911 if crime happens. And he had the Asian elders, everybody in the room repeat that. It was bizarre and scary as fuck.
Yeah.
It seems like, you know, full disclosure, my even like awareness of this dude in our community was not a ton until he ran for DA, and I still feel like I don't have a full or firm grip on like who he is, or like where he comes from, his history, all of that. But whatever, like he's a prosecutor, so he's a cop. And he seems very hell-bent on this idea that is not unique. It's not anything that's new in our community. It is echoed from like the McKinley Village, East Sac folk. It's echoed from you know, River Park, whatever, all of these neighborhoods of privilege, that the only way that we are going to end or prevent even homelessness is to enforce and mandate compliance. And enforcing things like drug, like what, you know, like they'll say that just like everybody's on drugs and they're selling drugs and it's a fucking drug den out there, and we gotta enforce and make sure that people aren't selling or using the drugs, and we gotta make sure that people are like keeping the shit clean and keeping the sidewalks clear and all that, you know, and also complying with a super white supremacist definition of what it means to be a human in society, which is that you don't take up a lot of space, you know, stick on the straight and narrow, and if you have mental health diagnoses, you get those things dealt with, and you just like keep plugging along, right? So it's like this guy is aiming for, first of all, he's punching down hard. He's not recognizing that he is a representative of an entity, the Sacramento County, that has a much larger budget than the city, which is, you know, who he's going after. He's failing to recognize where Sacramento County itself has not fulfilled the same expectations that he is expecting of the city, because there are not enough shelter beds provided by the county. The outreach provided by the county is trash. If you want to talk about there being sufficient alcohol and other drug treatment programs in the county, you can't, because there aren't enough. Just like,
now, here's the thing. I have people on Twitter being like, we have great alcohol and drug treatment programs. What are you talking about?
Eat my ass.
Is this the case?
Yeah, eat our ass, people on Twitter.
It's not the case. I mean, and here's the thing, like, people,
Can we get some anecdotes of that, or like, because I don't know the answer to that. It strikes me as absolute bullshit, because I have people I love and know who are addicts and have been addicts, and the chance that you can get free 30-day inpatient treatment, fucking nil. So if you're unhoused, the chance of you getting that, show me where you can fucking get that.
I think we have to, anytime we have a conversation about AOD, alcohol and other drug treatment, we have to first start it by saying that if people choose to use drugs, then they get to use drugs, right? Like that drugs being from the pits of hell is a fucking construct. So
I'm drinking red wine right now.
I mean, notice how he's not coming after the Sacklers who
started
the empire of like fentanyl and all of that stuff here. Like,
right.
Notice he's not coming after them or to litigate them or sue them or anything. He's just doing a circle jerk of, making cops and homeowners in these rich neighborhoods feel like he's doing something, and he's absolutely doing nothing he's actually going to make the situation worse.
I think there has to be an acknowledgement that there is that alcohol and drug use is alive and well in most communities, and the construct that it's all fucked is bullshit. But
just one of those things where if you're unhoused and you're using alcohol or drugs, then
it's a completely separate thing. You're held to a different standard.
You're held to a different standard.
And it's also the same thing.
I'm not allowed to drink if I'm unhoused.
You're not allowed to use. Immediately, if you drink or if you use, you're a fucking drunk.
Suddenly, that's the reason you're unhoused, right?
Right.
Like,
and the failure to have a conversation that the experience of being unhoused is so traumatic that if a little bit of meth is going to turn off your sensory input for the trauma, then most of the time people are going to use a little bit of meth. But the question was whether or not we have a sufficient alcohol and other drug treatment available in our county, and the answer is no. I mean, many years ago in like 2010, I want to say, the AOD budget was cut by thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. I've said it over and over. Alcohol and other drug.
Oh, sorry.
AOD, alcohol and other drug. The county has cut funding to AOD treatment, over and over and over again. What we have currently in Sacramento County is called the adult system of care. And the adult system of care operates between the hours of 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. And it's closed on all Sacramento County holidays. So that's a lot. There's a lot of fucking holidays that the county gets. So, and how are you eligible for this? You have to be a Sacramento County resident. You have to be 18 years or older. You have to be uninsured, or your insurance cannot cover AOD treatment. You can't be eligible for any other funding streams. And in the moment that you walk in for your assessment, you have to want help for your addiction.
Bureaucratic red tape. Red tape that doesn't fit addiction at all by any fucking stretch of the term.
There's significantly more red tape, because in order to be eligible, you have to bring with you to your system of care assessment a photo ID, an ID that shows you live in Sacramento County. You can bring like written proof that you live in the county, such as like your SMUD bill or your soon to be exponentially higher PG&E bill. But that's if you live in a house. And if you're homeless and you do not have those identification materials, you can still receive an assessment. And when you get there, you have to sit through an hour-long assessment. During the assessment, you're going to be asked about your past AOD use, your current use. You're going to be asked question after question after question. It's going to take an hour to get through this whole fucking thing. And then if you meet the eligibility criteria, you may receive authorization for detox, outpatient, or residential AOD treatment. Now, System of Care is sure to tell you that there may be a wait list for some of their services. And sometimes because there's a wait list, you have to participate in other programs in order to remain on the wait list. So between the time you are assessed and the time you are taken to inpatient or residential or outpatient, you might have to continue to check boxes for them to show that you actually do want the service. And on top of all of this, you may also be asked to provide a copay for these services. And sometimes that copay is like cash aid or food stamps. Here's the thing. If there was enough alcohol and other drug treatment in our community, one, we wouldn't have to have spaces like the Sure Center, because that's one of those like 24. Sure Center is substance use. I can't fucking remember the acronym, but COVID brain. Anyway, you can go and essentially detox. They'll come and pick you up. And in my line of work, I have people who are like, yo, I want to get clean. Like, this is it. Today's the day. And so we call the Sure Center and they're like, okay, we'll be there in 8.5 hours to pick the person up. 8.5 hours is like a fucking eternity for someone who's actively using and wants to stop. It's like, and it's also not medical detox, so there's just, if there was an adequate AOD treatment center or centers, we wouldn't have to have all of these sort of other shortcuts to trying to get people supported. Certainly if there was enough, we wouldn't have to do a fucking assessment that takes an hour long and has wild eligibility criteria.
And I'm an unhoused person. I'm like living in a tent. How far away from this place? How often do I have to come back? Blah, blah, blah. Like, absolutely not. Absolutely fucking not. Way. This doesn't happen.
Also, so what happens if your window of opportunity is, what if it's 4:30 on a fucking Friday and you're like, I've had enough. I don't really want to do this anymore.
Yeah. So you're all fucked. Of this. And then we talk about mental health services in the county. That's a fucking joke. I have friends who are gainfully employed that can't get mental health services they need. Literally can't. So you show me the programs that are open, that have open slots for unhoused people who are actively seeking mental health services. I fucking defy you to do that. So when they say service resistant, they're full of shit. They're full of shit and they know it. Man, I've sat in, I did COVID testing in the jails in the county, and I've sat in some of their classrooms, and like they just like talk to their, like, obviously I'm talking county, but like they basically talk to their deputies about how to circumvent the law and how to make themselves not liable to infringing on the law. So basically they're telling them like, oh, well, just offer them quote unquote services XYZ, then you're off the hook. Then you can start doing quote unquote enforcement against them. That's exactly what's going on here. So
I think this entire fucking lawsuit is about trying to make people fit into the definition of humans that is incredibly exclusive. And at the end of the day, this all this does is it further criminalizes unhoused people. It creates a much bigger wedge between the city and the county, that like, you know, when the DA is like, well, we work with the city, we've been working with the city. No, I mean, you don't sue the person that you're working with.
Right.
It's just it's such fucking backward ass shit. Like, the guy is
I mean, it
gross.
shows that his logic of incarcerating more people, you know, imposing this enforcement of the law with these ordinances, it's just that logic doesn't work. It's not meant to work. You know, one of the things that caught me with that new Cap Radio, the recent Cap Radio interview that he did with, I can't believe I don't remember,
Vicky Gonzalez on
Vicky,
Wednesday morning. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Nikki Gonzalez, like,
Vicky.
you know, he said, oh, my friend, ex-mayor Jim Jones. I was like, oh, well, that checks. That checks. You know, like, all this money, this county money is going to the sheriff, and
Oh, you mean Jim Cooper?
Oh, Jim Cooper.
I'm sorry, Jim Cooper. Yes, not Jim.
It's ex assembly member, former assembly member Jim Cooper, who is now the current Sacramento County sheriff.
Right-wing Democrat.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that it all checks. Like, this is just a continual gutting of like public safety net services for people on how we can have some safety, public safety and whatnot. It's not going to the people. This is just a flex of his power.
I think that's, and like we've kind of been all over this episode, but there's just been so much to cover with the bullshit that
with this one thing. Yeah.
This one thing he did, you know, with his press conference, I believe it was Tuesday morning, but there's a few cruxes here. Number one is that basically the long and short of it is, and I think this is the overarching point, is that he's trying to backslide us 8 years to a Kevin Johnson era Sacramento that just enforced and criminalized the act of being homeless. And we fought and won a lot of battles against that. And there have been a lot of battles that have happened where some of those things are no longer being criminalized. Now, he's saying that because the homelessness crisis has risen, because there's quote unquote 250% more unhoused people today than there were 7 years ago when Darrell Steinberg took office. Well, that must be because we're not enforcing enough, because he's a hammer and everything's a nail. But that's fucking absurd. The determinants of homelessness are not the fact that you are homeless. That doesn't, like, kicking somebody when they're homeless doesn't kick them into housing. There's literally, we do not have enough affordable housing in this city. We have had an influx of people from the Bay Area that has pushed people out into the streets who can't afford the rise in housing costs. This is simple fucking math. But what they want to do, and what they're doing with their dying breath, because a new progressive generation is winning, is to try and do the most draconian thing possible. And the thing is, I think they're going to be able to do it for the next at least year or so. You know, I think he's going to win in forcing the city to do homeless sweeps when we do not have shelter beds available. See, what he said on, like you said, on Cap Radio was totally backwards. And Vicky actually pushed him on this pretty well. She's like,
that was a good interview.
But how can you, you know, talk about these unhoused people and how you care for them when you're like doing sweeps when there's nowhere for them to go. You have nowhere to tell them or ask them to go. And he just dances around it and is like, well, you know, we gotta have a swift kick in the ass. You know, it's gotta be a stick that will get people to realize that, I gotta get my shit together. That's not how this works today. There are material conditions that have led us to this. And there are societies that do not have homeless populations that are leftist societies that do not have as much money as this one. The crux of this one is exactly what we've been talking about for years on the show, right? Sorry, I'm getting a little ranty, but like, I do think, and we're seeing it with the Department of Community Response basically getting totally dissolved in recent weeks. And then with the mayor handing everything on homelessness over to the city manager, who has always wanted to continue doing violent homeless sweeps. I think we're going to go in that direction. And I think we're going to watch that happen in a very scary and violent way throughout this election season.
I think like as I listened to the DA's press conference, and as I reflect back on like the history of homelessness in Sacramento as I know it, which is like I've been working on homelessness and housing issues since 2008 in Sacramento. What has ended up happening is that we talk about the KJ era, Kevin Johnson, the KJ era of homelessness response, which was it was pretty violent. There was a lot of sweeps. There wasn't a lot of services. This was right around the time that social service budgets were being cut, and in particular, Sacramento County had a homeless services branch. An entire arm of the county was dedicated to homeless services, and it operated out of 1590 North 8th Street. And that was cut. And thus began this move toward having an outside entity take over services for unhoused folks. That entity became Sacramento Steps Forward. It's an organization that I worked for about 4 years during the time that transition was happening. And from that time all the way up until today, I think the common thread in this fight, because I was going to call it conversation, but it's not a fucking conversation, in this fight against unhoused folks, is that people of privilege are so bothered by having to recognize suffering in their communities that they then start speaking up out of their own discomfort. So even like the DA's press conference was all hinged on that. It's recognizing that there are people who are suffering, but also we don't want to see it. Like, get rid of this, and I don't care how it happens, right? And I recognize that capitalists don't really spend a lot of time looking in the mirror as much as they spend time looking at their fucking bank accounts. But what has happened since the early aughts to present is that the disparity, the gap between people who have and people who are struggling to make it has become greater and greater. And therefore, the number of people that we find living on the streets of Sacramento, on the streets of San Francisco, on the streets of wherever the fuck is greater. But we also have some communities that are choosing to respond to that disparity, and they are choosing to come up with compassionate solutions in order to ensure that unhoused people are not left to suffer day and night. And so why is the number of people in Sacramento who are unhoused greater than the number of people in San Francisco that are unhoused? It's because there are people in San Francisco who are making decisions to budget for people receiving the social support that they need. Whereas in Sacramento, we continue to villainize unhoused people, we continue to criminalize unhoused people, and we continue to pack the pockets of developers, business owners, and the oligarchs of our community, so that people who are suffering simply do not have a chance in fucking hell to get a leg up.
Yeah. Well, I
mean, also, like, unhoused people are getting bussed over or flighted over by from other states because they just don't have the services in their states as well to take care of them. So a lot of them are ending up here as well.
Well, I worry about that one because I think then the anti-homeless people will start saying that, the folks who are homeless here are not from here, and let's kick them all out.
I think my experience
fair.
working directly with unhoused folks in Sacramento is the overwhelming majority are people who are from Sacramento, have lost their housing in this community. Because here's the other thing is that, there's a ton of red tape for people. If you're coming from out of state, out of county to receive services as an unhoused person, you're not going to. So the whole idea that it's people from out of county or out of state who are coming to us to receive services, like, they're not going to, so they're just not here. You most often, like, when you fall on hard times, the thing is, it's like, I'm going to go back home. And for some people, home looks different for a lot of people, but in the context of folks who are unhoused, my experience is that these are folks from Sacramento, who are really, really fucking struggling, like suffering, struggling. They are suffering. And even more now, because we have a person in position of power, the DA, who is putting his blessing upon calling unhoused people criminals.
Can we talk about I want to say his thing about getting police to enforce against crime, whereas all the crimes they're naming are mostly nonviolent crimes by a large part. I want to talk about Sacramento Police Department has more money than they've ever had. You have people claiming that people are defunding the police. No one's defunding the police. They've never had this much fucking money in their entire history. Sac PD. A friend at the police commission is texting me in real time, and I asked them what the clearance rate is, and this is for just arrests, not whether or not a person did a crime. This is just arrests to end up in jail and be charged with something, or not even charged with it, just arrested. For property crimes in 2022, 6.5%. That's the rate. So if you think cops are stopping crimes, they're fucking not. They're not. The way we end this is by dealing with societal ills where they begin. And that begins with us taking better care of each other, giving each other better opportunities, giving each other housing and opportunities to eat and feed our families. Can I ask where we stand on if this was a political maneuver or not?
I mean, the DA says this is not about politics. He said that in the Cap Radio thing. Yes, it's a fucking political move.
Yeah.
Of course it's a political move.
Absolutely.
Why else sorry, I'm trying to be careful of what I'm about to say on account of
please don't
some things. Sacramento finds itself in a space where in a delicate political space where we are ripe for change, and where people, like the working people of this community, have been underrepresented for far too long. And I think that the establishment is scared of that. And so we have a person like the DA who is attempting to prove himself in a way that is incredibly harmful and violent. And so it's going to, create a situation where his voice is amplified, and therefore the voices of the capitalistic fucking privileged unhoused haters of Sacramento are going to feel real seen and real heard. And that is something that can really bolster a person's position in the community. But I think the other thing that it is going to do is that it's going to arm the left with more. One of the things I think that we tend to do is we are armed by our frustration and by our anger for the way that people are treated poorly and not represented. And so I think that by coming out in this way, I understand what the DA is attempting to do, but I do think that I think that he must not know about the people who are ready to come for him.
This is going to be
the political realm.
So bad for them politically leading into 2024. I don't see how this is good for them if they start doing these backwards, anachronistic, draconian violent measures against our poorest neighbors. I don't think they understand.
No.
The fact that makes it political to me is that he's naming obviously the most progressive people on city council, right? He was
Oh yeah, it's not
threatening-
political, but he names all of them.
Yeah, threatening with
Yeah.
like criminal charges, Katie Valenzuela and Mayor Steinberg, and like sort of like kind of saying that Mai Vang and Katie Maple aren't doing their work, and then congratulating the 5 conservatives on the council. Once again, folks, if you can count to 5 is the majority. They're the ones that can actually get things done on council. So the conservatives are the ones that are at fault for where we are today. These 4 people on council, these 3 young women actually have been pushing forward with actual housing solutions, but they're not going to make it through because, again, this is a conservative council. So I'm interested to see how this political maneuver works for Thien Ho. Also, it seems like he's like trying to raise his profile. The way he talked during that press conference, the way he's quoting fucking Dark Knight, like
Listen, the guy really likes Batman, okay?
Yeah.
It was a very weird, I will say, like, as the first sort of look at me, here I am very powerful DA move. His presentation was like, it was pretty comical. I mean, as like listening to him, it felt a little bit like a Saturday Night Live sketch. And like also just like watching, I honestly would like to have a conversation with the 2 people who spoke and just be like, do you realize that you were just used as a chess piece? Like that he doesn't actually give a shit about you. You were tokenized and you allowed yourselves to be used. Like
pointing at a man in a wheelchair as he talked, it was
and here's the thing is that I think those of us who are on this side of the conversation, we would also say a person who is in a wheelchair like certainly should have right to passage, but so should a person have a place to live. And and as soon as we start doing the thing where we
These are
build
not
a
in
hierarchy
conflict.
of needs,
Yes.
then we lose our footing. We cannot build a hierarchy of needs when it comes to the human experience, right? Except to say that the basic rights are you should have housing, you should have medical care, you should have access to food, you should have access to education. Like, and if we can operate from that space, then we don't have to be in the space of, look at the DA's got a guy in a wheelchair that he's using against a person who is living with like comorbidities and probably sexual assault and incredible trauma and diminished executive function. Like, are you fucking kidding me? You just put those people up against each other? That's out of control bullshit. That's like the ugliest part of our community.
It's an action enthrall to the capital class, to those who have power.
Totally.
And I will say, I know that quote unquote business leader groups have meetings about how to use our language against us.
Oh, sure.
Use empathetic language against us toward the public to make themselves seem like the empathetic ones. And I'm seeing it happen today. So I know that the chamber, Metro Chamber, I know that Region Business had their hand in this action. And what they're doing is they're using a county DA who they believe is popular because they did win the popular vote in the county to attack a city to do rich people's bidding. I think it's going to work in the short term. I think it's going to really fuck them in the long term.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's gross and it's disappointing and it sucks that we continue to, I mean, a conversation that we have outside of recording is like, oh, we have to talk again about homelessness in Sacramento. Like, we would love to be talking about other things. We would also love to be talking about things where we weren't just like fucking angry, disappointed, frustrated. Like we would love to be able to like bring to this show all of the cool things that are happening in Sacramento. But the problem is that we continue to have these scenarios where our leadership are using constructs against humans to hurt them, and we will always be here to kick shit and to get yelly and ranty, but fuck, it would be super cool if we could like maybe get yelly about something else.
Agree.
Yeah, agreed.
Also, I have COVID and I'm tired.
You showed some energy today. You found it.
Well, I've been asleep most of the day. I drank a yerba mate just prior to this show.
Yeah, like an Argentino or Uruguayo?
No, like a fucking hipster who buys them in a can.
Okay.
I do not identify as such, but I do love the yerbas in a can.
It's really good. Good mouth burner.
Mm.
In a can. That doesn't burn your mouth. Anyway,
Nothing burns my mouth right now. I can't taste anything.
Next time, folks. But I think we wrap it. Maybe we might have
probably. We don't have time for anything else.
I don't know how like we've had so many stops with Skylar's technical difficulties. Skylar, we miss you and love you. We hope you're okay.
Yeah. Hope you're okay.
I think he probably just got back to making more vaccines in the tub.
Probably chilling. Yeah.
He got like some extra time. He's just fucking making some vaccines and drinking whiskey.
Working on a new Harvey Dent voice.
That's what I was thinking.
That's
Harvey
probably
Dent
what he's
quotes.
doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's just splicing together some, I don't know, speeches with movies.
That was impressive. It was beautifully threaded.
That's gonna be my ringtone.
So good. We didn't even talk about Steinberg in Norway too.
No, we didn't have time for it. I kind of thought this would be our entire episode once I saw what happened, but I wanted to make sure we had other ideas. But anyway, Steinberg our mayor is in Norway, folks. Looking at
Newsom, right?
We're just spending a shit ton of money to send the mayor to Norway to think about alternatives to incarceration, and like nothing's actually going to happen. So that's basically what our seg was going to be.
The funny thing, it's not alternatives to incarceration. It's just alternative incarceration.
Heard. Yeah. Say that though.
You're still
didn't they send like somebody like how many years ago?
Man,
this is the
like,
second time.
They're always sending people. They're like, listen, we heard this thing is cool.
Done.
Let's send this person to do the thing. And then nothing happens with the thing.
Yeah, well, let's see what happens. I mean, they're claiming they're going to beautify San Quentin, the most storied, horrific prison in California history. So
San Quentin, the Airbnb of prisons.
Oh,
Lord. Scary.
I can't wait until like all like inmates get like artisan pastries and third wave coffee,
like hipster hair and tattoos. Yeah.
Oh yeah, fuck yeah, that shit's gonna be dope. I'm gonna do some crime so I can get in there.
Well, on that we call the show, folks.
And on that depressing note,
I'm off to do crimes.
I don't know. I just, there's no call to action with the Thien Ho thing, I don't think. I know the Sac Homeless Union is filing sort of a separate injunction in this case, which is funny because the Homeless Union doesn't like either the city or the county. So they're like, well, we're certainly not defending the city, but we are, we're going to.
But we're not supporting the county.
We're definitely going to let folks know how we feel about the county too. Which,
I mean, Thien Ho at the press conference kept on saying we want to ensure public safety, right? And
so important.
He's not going to do it, but I know somebody who's gonna be really good for public safety.
Crystal's coming in hot.
Yeah,
with the Homeless Union.
Coming in hot.
Alrighty,
well,
let's call it.
Let's call it the thing. We did the thing.
Running low on
See you next time. I mean, you should probably just become a patron. Patreon.com/VoicesRiverCity.
Now you're making the mistake I always make.
Listen.
How do y'all?
We gotta go. We're done with the show.
Goodbye, everyone. Shannon needs rest.